There are fears of fuel running out due to the ongoing unrest. Some petrol stations in areas affected by violence were closed as a precaution. How have fuel deliveries been affected? Could this become a bigger, more widespread issue? Let's talk to Layton Beard, spokesperson for the Automobile Association of South Africa. Layton, always great to chat to you. Thanks very much for your time this evening. So first off, we've seen reports that SAPREF has called a force majeure and shut down its fuel refinery operation in Durban. Can you confirm whether that is the case? And how would that affect fuel supply across South Africa?
Good evening, Anlie. Sorry, I missed the middle part of that question, but I think it does relate to the situation in Durban. I can't confirm what the situation is. I think we're getting anecdotal reports coming in from some people. We've got sporadic information suggesting that some fuel stations are running dry and that some fuel stations are rationing fuel users, but we haven't heard anything official. I think when we look at the current situation, it's inevitable that with the N3 that has been closed from Sadara up to Heidelberg, and that's a huge stretch of road, around 450 k's on that road, and also the problems being faced at Durban Port, it's inevitable that supply is going to be affected. But we don't want to scaremonger anybody, and we certainly don't want anybody to go and panic buy. But I think that what we do need to do is just make people aware that in the long term, it's inevitable that there will be problems with supply given the nature of these riots and where they are actually taking place, which is impacting on the routes that normally would be used for supply.
For ordinary South Africans who, at this stage, many people are working at home anyway to A, comply with COVID regulations and B, to avoid unrest. But for businesses, this could be another huge blow at a time when they are already receiving blow upon blow, not only due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but to the unrest itself. What impact could a nationwide fuel shortage have on the economy?
Yeah, again, I think firstly we must be very careful about the language we use, Annelie, in saying that there is definitely going to be a fuel shortage. I think that again, we don't want to panic anybody into a situation where they feel that they need to panic buy and there's a run on fuel stations throughout the country. We certainly haven't heard of widespread fuel stations running dry just yet. And I cannot confirm whether that is the case at the moment. But certainly, I think if we are in a situation where fuel supply becomes limited, it is going to impact on our economy. There is no question about it. But we're already in a situation where, as a road-reliant society, as a road freight-reliant society, and our colleague Gavin Kelly from the Road Freight Federation will tell you as much, when we can't be supplying goods across the country, our economy is already in a precarious position. Obviously, fuel shortages and a lack of supply will contribute to that. But we are not in that position right now. As far as the AA is aware, we have not received any formal indication that fuel is a major problem at the moment. Again, it's a question we have to wait for the next couple of days and see how all of this plays out in terms of fuel supplies. And I'm sure by the end of the week, we'll have a clearer picture of exactly what our situation is.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. I'm definitely not trying to put panic or fear into anyone. No. Let me ask you whether you have perhaps, as the AA, heard any confirmed reports about fuel tankers being targeted. We saw a number of trucks being looted as part of protest and looting action in the middle of last week. Over the weekend, transport companies have also been targeted. What have you heard about fuel tankers?
Yeah, we haven't specifically heard that the civil unrest, not the protests, but the civil unrest is targeting fuel tankers. We certainly haven't heard that. I think when we look at the pictures that are coming through from around the country, and one of your colleagues, Das Ntatia today certainly got some amazing footage overlooking Durban and of the port and the CBD area. And I think that when we look at that, there appears to us to be this widespread rioting, just targeting anything, not specifically targeting fuel tankers. We certainly haven't heard that that is the case, but we remain concerned nonetheless about the attacks on all freight throughout the country. But no, I mean, Anlie, to answer your question, we haven't heard anything that specifically suggests that fuel tankers are being targeted.
Right, so given that there is a fair measure of worry amongst South Africans already, to quell that fear and anxiety, what's your advice to South Africans about responsible fuel purchases?
Yes, I mean, that's a great question, actually, and I think our response to that would be, you've got to use the fuel that you need. Don't go getting fuel that you don't need. And what I mean by that is, if you, as you said earlier, are not going to be traveling long distances, certainly not out of your province, but if you're not going to be traveling to work, you may not need a vehicle. But there are some people who may need fuel for their generators. There may be people who are still going to work and that will require that. There may be essential workers that need fuel for their cars to get to and from work, and also for essential vehicles to get to certain scenes. So you've got to bear that in mind when you are filling up with an eye on what I said earlier, that there may be shortages in the long run because supply is so severely constrained and compromised at the moment. And you've got to ask yourself the question, if I use this fuel, is it absolutely necessary right now? And if it isn't, then we would suggest to you, rather don't fill up the tank if you don't need to, and maybe just keep it at half if that's going to suit your needs. So that, I think, would be responsible fuel usage, especially now. But I'm certainly not suggesting people mustn't buy fuel. That's not the case. All I'm suggesting is just buy the fuel you need, not the fuel you want.
Absolutely. Look at the bigger picture. Thank you very much, Layton Beard from the Automobile Association.